It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a brand new Wednesday. A very special Wednesday on Red Eye Radio. Gary, how are you?
Good. Now, remember when Rick Scott came out with his plan before the midterms last year and was talking about the fact of having to reform Social Security, and everybody was like, shh.
Yeah.
No, not now,
Yeah.
not now,
Yeah.
not now.
Right.
And so there were some Republicans upset at him. I just saw this audio just before we get on the air from Rick Scott and said, I got to play this because this made me laugh.
Okay.
This made me laugh in a good way.
Yeah.
This
right.
made me laugh.
All right,
here we go. This is Rick Scott from Florida.
Senator Rick Scott here. Let me give you a travel warning. If you're a socialist, communist, somebody that believes in big government, I would think twice. Think twice if you're thinking about taking a vacation or moving to Florida. We're the free state of Florida. We actually don't believe in socialism. We actually know people, and some people in our state lived under it, and we know people lived under socialism. It's not good. It's not good for anybody. So if you're thinking about it, if you think about coming to Florida and you're a socialist or communist, think twice. We like freedom, liberty, capitalism, things like that.
So another travel advisory for Florida.
Yes.
If you're a commie or a socialist.
Listen.
Or he didn't mention pinko.
Yeah.
If you're a pinko.
No, that's actually the color for the code of the warning. It is a pinko warning.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's, I'm not sure if they updated you on that. I think Governor DeSantis put that in like a couple days ago. The pinko warning, anti-communist.
And the best thing is I was, I always go to, YouTube every single day because there's just so much material you can get from what's going on in D.C. Mm-hmm. And also there's the other stuff, the other stuff in my history and what came up. It's like, take my mind off of work a little bit. It was like, the best of Seinfeld, the best of Mickey.
Yeah.
And it was the commie episode.
Yeah.
Where, remember, he was the elf to Kramer.
Right. Yeah.
And the little kid, Santa's a commie. He's a commie. Santa's not a commie. I heard him. He's a commie.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. No pinko commies in Florida. You're not welcome in Florida. And don't even think about Texas. We stop you at the border. Our friends in Oklahoma actually do all of our enforcement. You can't come in. No.
Well, we do have Austin is a sanctuary commie.
You can be a pretend commie. You can go as far.
You pretend commies are allowed.
You can go as far as wearing tie-dye. That's where we draw the line.
Well, no, you can move to Austin, pretend you're a commie, but live under much more of a free market system than where you may be coming from.
Those are the tie-dye people. Yes. You can wear the tie-dye.
You can be a pretend commie here in Texas.
Yes, you can.
You can tell your friends you're a socialist and a commie.
Exactly. And then, you can also explain to them why there's so many homeless in your city.
Hey, did you see? That was a national story.
Yeah.
About 6th Street in Austin.
Yeah, some investors want to come in and make it family friendly. Okay, number one, I don't know that 6th Street is ever going to be family friendly based on the history. But if you want to say we would like to clean up the area and make it more amenable to people who come here and enjoy 6th Street, okay.
Well, part of it was the defunding the police and then backing off on it.
Right.
And, backing off on it and then just, setting up that image that if you're a cop, you don't want to work there. And I saw out of their last graduating class, it was 14 cops. That was way below the expectation of what they need.
Right.
It's just yesterday was a day. First off, I was a guest on a great podcast, a friend of Red Eye Radio yesterday. And I was honored to be on a great podcast, Dale Carter's America.
Mm-hmm.
And he's well known in Kansas City.
Right.
I think I told you before. He is the public address announcer of at Arrowhead Stadium.
Okay, all right.
And he does a great radio show, music radio show. Been the huge in Kansas City for years in music radio, but also got into doing a conservative podcast. And he's been listening to our show for years. I mean, and so he was very complimentary of you, just so you know. But it was
thank you, Dave.
It was a great day because I got up and it was. And I'm not sure when the podcast with me is going to be on, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And, I talked about how, he said, obviously, Gary, you carry the show. And I said, well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we all know that. Yeah.
And he said, and you definitely have the smaller ego of the two. No.
Yeah.
Everybody knows.
No, we all know that as well.
I'm kidding. No,
it's written right here in the paper that you gave me right before we started the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was, that was just great. I mean, my mind got working very, very early in the morning,
right?
And then it was just everything. After that, I started observing, and my mind was just working, just going. And I'm like, wow, everything. There's so many stories out there about the story of San Francisco and how now other blue cities are looking at what's going on in San Francisco, and the fact that the homeless situation and the cost of living in these blue cities. And now the blue states and the blue cities are seriously looking at what they can afford to do. And then the story came out about the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, who came out and said, well, we're going to have to drastically cut back on free health care for illegals because we can't afford it anymore. And it was just one of those days, including having the conversations with Dale that we had on a number of topics, where it's just so obvious every day, something that we said a while back, that the left was winning because everything was an abstract concept. It was, if you do it our way, here's what you're going to get. And the right would be saying, no, if you do it our way, here's what you're going to get. Well, liberalism won, and more socialism and huge government spending and government in control of more through regulation each and every day, and all of a sudden it hit the wall of reality across the board. And you see it, we saw it with, healthcare in general, that California couldn't do it, Colorado couldn't do it,
right.
Vermont couldn't do it,
right.
because they had to pay for it.
Right.
And so...
And Bernie was all for taxing the rich in Vermont until he became one of the rich in Vermont.
Yeah, but it was just one of those days where everything related back to the fact of, all right, reality bites. I was thinking about that movie yesterday. I just went, wow, it's a reality bites day for liberals. And so, and you still see on, on the things like the radical transgender movement, you still see that they're pushing so hard for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
they're just, they're doubling down. I saw was it the Kentucky governor?
Yeah.
Saw the headline where it's like, oh, these are just, necessary medical procedures. Shut up. For children. Look, we've said this. Let's make it simple, because we could just say it like the meme. If you're an adult, do the hell whatever you want to do. Don't make me pay for it, and leave out the children. All right? I think most Americans would say, yeah, I could live with that.
No, in recent marches, they have signs now, we're coming after your children.
Right.
And which has been the case, and they're still talking about it in California. We'll have a judge decide to take your children, custody of your children, the state will take, if you don't get in line with our agenda. That's what they're still talking about in California. And we told you this a long time ago, that eventually it will be deemed child abuse if you don't walk the walk and talk the talk. That's where we are. And they're proud of it. And next summer on the stage in Chicago, It's going to be front, center, and prime time. I'm convinced. I hope I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, that means America did a lot more pushback than I expected between now and then. And we're definitely seeing that grow. People are being vocal about it. You're not touching my kids.
Yeah. And I think it's a very easy way to explain it.
Yep.
You know, it's very, very.
I don't care
to
what
me,
you
it's very
do as
simple.
an adult. I don't care. None of my business. But I mean, when I say I don't care, I really don't care. Whatever you're doing in your life never crosses my mind. It's not a concern. I've got cares of my own. Go do what you're going to do. Don't have the government decide that they're going to control my speech because of your agenda. That's where I draw the line. That's where you're infringing on my rights. And don't you dare reach out for my kids, my grandkids, or any of them in my family or my community. Don't do it. You're not going to win this fight. We've said it from the beginning, and one of the encouraging things is that it's not just parents now that are pushing back. You know, we talked about this in Loudoun. We said, look, here's the way this is going to play out. This is the end of the school year, and then the summer's going to go by. It's going to be a little quiet. When we get into August, this thing's going to ramp up again, and it did. And we said, this is the way it's going to go. And what they don't realize, and Disney didn't realize and still doesn't realize, is that they've drawn a line in the sand with the parents. They're going to war with the parents, not the right. And that's the difference. And now you're seeing members of the gay community come out. Gays Against Grooming. They have a name for their group. Mm-hmm. They don't want any part of it. And I'm thankful that they came out and said something about it. And keep in mind, before we get to their convention next summer, we have another Pride Month leading right up to Convention Month. That's going to be interesting. I mean, all of this is playing out, and I really do hope I'm wrong about this, because that will be an indication that America is pushing back, and they felt that they couldn't get away with having that on the prime time presentation of their convention. But as of right now, I believe it's going to be right up there, front and center. This is going to be their battle.
The only thing I can think of is will the leadership of the Democratic Party say it's time for us to pretend like we used to, that we're moving towards the middle?
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a recognition of that in the next year before the convention? That we can't we have to lie bigger, because I don't see any emphasis to truly change, except if you look, for example, Pritzker in Illinois. Mm-hmm. Sorry, we can't afford to pay, illegal immigrants their health care. Sorry, we can't do it. Right. We know we're supposed to be sanctuary, but we can't afford to do it anymore. And that is, the bill is coming due. And the people that have paid the bills, which are the rich, the majority of the rich that pays the majority of the bills, a small majority of the rich in all of those states, in New York and Illinois, probably in most states they do.
Yeah.
But in those particular states, that's where they're moving from. And so the only way they can raise the revenue is to tax the people that vote for them.
Yep.
And so eventually it has to come to an end. And was talking about that, we had a great conversation with Dale on that, about the reality is now hitting, and that's going to be the great changer over the next decade, which is really, if there's a reason that I'm an optimist, it's because I know that the people, when reality hits, the people know what the right way is to go.
Well, that's it. This is not, and this is why Gays Against Grooming and others that have come out and said, whoa, 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 whoa. This was never meant to be about kids, ever.
Right.
And when you see that, that's what's encouraging, because that goes beyond, the parents that I say that they go to battle with. They're going to battle with anyone who has a reasonable mind. And that is what will change things. And I really do hope that's what we see by next summer. But as of right now, I don't see that Titanic turning around in time. I think it's definitely going to be on stage at some point during their convention, and we'll see if it gets primetime coverage. But, yes, that is definitely encouraging.
866-90 Red Eye.
Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. Retreads have a reputation for causing that rubber debris or gators found on the sides of the highway. However, studies show that 68% of the tire debris collected on the highway comes from new tires, not retreads. The reality is that retreads will wear at the same rate as new tires if you don't properly maintain them. Retreads are still a major investment and require engaged maintenance practices. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, we're ready for another audio cut?
All right, I'm ready.
Is it? Okay, I thought it was Thursday. All right, okay.
It's only Wednesday.
All right, it doesn't matter. It's all over the place Wednesday.
All right.
What I'd like about doing the show overnight,
yeah,
you can just do whatever you want, and if you want to change instantaneously, you can do it.
Listen,
nobody really cares.
We can make it Thursday. Prove us wrong. It's Thursday.
True.
Tell us where we're wrong.
we on today's show identify as Thursday.
That's right.
All right, here's Biden spokesperson Olivia Dalton yesterday being asked this question.
Does the White House believe Attorney General Garland committed perjury when he testified under oath that Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss could bring charges outside his district?
I don't have any comment on this. Anita?
I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Next.
They still haven't responded, have they? No,
nope.
Nothing.
Nope.
We'll delve into that because that got interesting yesterday. Information from the second whistleblower, the New York Times, finally starting to admit, okay, something's going on here. We'll get to to that. You can't ignore it. I was watching. It was I don't know if it was it might have been what's the one? Outnumbered. And I wasn't watching it live. I was watching it. They had the clip on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they were I just got mind blank on it. I don't know if it was the New York Times they were talking about. It just popped out of my mind. I'll figure out what it was, but it was when I saw that yesterday, I went with the spokesperson. I'm like, wow. They can't even admit it.
Well, and they can't, the story's not, as we said, it's not going to go away. The reason it's not going to go away is because there has been zero effort to actually discount the evidence itself. I mean, there have been some people, no. Who said, who was it that was saying, it's only hearsay. It's only hearsay. That was weeks ago. But it's only hearsay. You mean witness? Yeah, you're not in court yet.
Right. That was
that applies in court.
That was dumb.
Yeah. And but that's there's these weak attempts. There's been no real effort.
Raskin said that.
Yeah.
Raskin.
And there's been no real effort really to discount the evidence, which means this is not going away.
giving you 70% each night. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley. I'm Gary McNamara. All right, all over the place Wednesday, which we're identifying as Thursday.
Yeah.
But the other thing yesterday that had me laughing is the media and response to Karine Jean-Pierre 2 days ago talking about how great the economy is and how people are realizing it. And the response yesterday, are they delusional? I mean, what in the world? I mean, what economy are they looking at?
Exactly.
And it actually got to when you had the deputy, the other deputy White House press secretary out there yesterday, Olivia Dalton, and she was asked this question.
So the Federal Reserve says inflation is double what the Federal Reserve would like to see, and they believe the unemployment rate will go to 4.1%. So how is Bidenomics not an era of high inflation and rising unemployment rate?
Let's hear the answer, okay? But the question made me. I didn't even need to get to the answer because I know what the answer is going to be.
Right, yeah.
It's the blah, 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 but let's hear the blah, blah, blah.
All right.
Well, take a look at where we started and where we are now. That's the easiest answer to your question. When we came into office with the global economic headwinds of COVID that were then compounded by the disruptions we faced when Russia invaded Ukraine and disrupted global food supply chains, global fuel supply chains, sent inflation soaring around the world. Right now, the United States is in a better position on inflation than any other major economy. And why is that? It's because the president took a number of swift and decisive actions to make sure that we got our economy on track, that we got ourselves open and chugging along again. And today, as a consequence of that, we see record low unemployment, record new small business starts, inflation that, again, is lower than any other major economy in the world. And we're making progress.
But we're seeing layoffs, specifically talking about the auto industry. For example, Ford is saying they're laying off workers to afford the cost of the transition to EV. The first quarter of this year, Ford lost $700 million on their EV program, lost $600 million last year. So is that what we can expect with Bidenomics?
Well, I would just say looking across...
I'm sorry. Did you see? I haven't seen her much out there, but she took a gulp. She was like when she was in the middle of it. It was like, oh boy, if she's going to be the eventual replacement for Karine Jean-Pierre, it's not going to be good when you. But Karine Jean-Pierre is just so horrible. Yeah. Then again, you and I, we had this discussion off the air yesterday about John Kirby.
Yeah.
About how we said, this goes back about, 9 months ago, maybe a year ago. We said John Kirby's got to replace her. And then Kirby gets in there, and he just stares when you ask a tough question like he's, the deer in the headlights. And you're like, well, part of the problem is you have to defend the indefensible.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to give answers that are that really, if you were to give a logical and honest answer, it's going to destroy this presidency. There's no way around that.
Well, what is Bidenomics? And this is actually, and we talked about this yesterday, this is serious. I'm not being sarcastic.
Serious. No joke.
No joke. There's no joke here.
No joke. Serious.
I'm being serious.
It's serious.
All right?
It's serious.
Don't think I'm kidding here.
No, come on.
I'm serious.
Come on.
Don't look at me that way.
Come on, Jack.
Bidenomics is government subsidizing businesses where there is no demand from the public to buy it. We see it because it's the perfect example we can see is EVs.
Yeah.
The public doesn't want it. It's extremely expensive.
Right.
If the public wanted it, the public still can't afford it.
Right.
Massive taxpayer subsidies goes into it. Because they are doing this, the other product that's needed is electricity.
Mm-hmm.
On electricity, they're doing everything they can to cripple the United States to produce electricity as they want to drastically increase the consumption of electricity. And so what they wish to do in electricity is the same thing they want to do to EVs. And you look at it, how much of the economy is affected by car production and also electricity, energy.
Right.
So they don't want the United States to produce oil and natural gas. They wish us to produce electricity in the most inefficient way possible that has to be subsidized. And then they need another backup because the energy sources they wish to use are inconsistent and not reliable. I mean, I was thinking yesterday, I was driving around and the wind is blowing. And the wind's blowing like about 15, 17 miles an hour, and it's hot out, but it doesn't feel that bad because the wind's blowing.
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, the only reason we're not in, a drastic situation in the state of Texas today is because the wind happens to be blowing. But if the wind isn't blowing, you would have seen it over the last couple of days. Warning, 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 grid problems, grid problems, grid problems. And
because it's too much of a reliance on wind power.
Yeah. And solar.
Yep.
And so when you see, when I came in here tonight, I looked at the temperature outside. It was 91 degrees.
Yeah, my truck read 92 on the way in.
And it was like, whoa. And, I mean, it'll drop. It'll get down to probably 80, 81, by the time we get to the morning. But I also saw in Drudge Report, Texas, hotter than 99.9% of the world. This isn't abnormal, having these temperatures.
No.
We've had these before. This isn't, the headlines out there. But that's another topic. But the Bidenomics is having the government central plan the economy. They wish to central plan energy production in the United States. They wish to destroy the production of oil and natural gas that doesn't need subsidies. And they wish to produce electricity from inconsistent and inefficient means, then forcing the states, as we've seen in the state of Texas, to come out and say, well, we need to build 10 natural gas plants to back up this inconsistent form of energy that the government is piling taxpayer dollars into, that will increase the cost of electricity. It'll increase the cost of automobiles, as we have seen, to the point where people can't afford it. That's Bidenomics.
Yep.
And I'm not being sarcastic, Jack. That's actually what Bidenomics is.
Serious. No joke.
Bidenomics is having Biden decide how the economy is going to run.
Yep.
Does anybody think that's actually a good thing? That Biden should decide how the economy runs? Because that's what Bidenomics is.
It's a good thing that we have inflation, because it means people are spending more money.
Remember that?
Remember
they said that at one point.
Remember when he said, I just learned how expensive hamburger is. A pound of hamburger. Wow. Yeah. Way to sound disconnected.
But that was really interesting, because the discussion was, what is Bidenomics? And you think about it, in Washington, D.C., the reporters feel it too.
Oh, yeah.
All those reporters, there are maybe some of the network reporters that may be making millions of dollars.
Anchors, but they're not working the White House. Yeah. I mean, they may every once in a while, but they're not. But they're not part of that pool of reporters.
And you may have some of the pool of reporters that work for the major news networks that are doing okay, but they're not making $10 million a year.
No.
You've got a lot of those reporters in there. Remember, a lot of those reporters work for internet publications. So if you're making, let's say you're making $200,000, which people would view as a pretty good salary, right? But you're making it in Washington, D.C. Remember, members of Congress, when if they come into Congress for the first time, $170,000, $180,000, they're looking to live with other people. They're looking for roommates.
Sleeping in their office.
Yeah. And so that shows you how expensive it is in D.C. and how they recognize, those reporters recognize inflation, and it's not good. And you can say all you want, but the public isn't convinced on it based on the polling. So it was an interesting day yesterday because people were just dying about Karine Jean-Pierre the day before. Optimistic and saying, and saying the people of the United States recognize, they see it coming. They see this great economy coming. They do.
I'm sorry. Who's saying that? Yeah. What great economy? It's just paint this picture that isn't there. People just can't see how great the economy is. They're too busy paying attention to their bank accounts. That's the problem, Gary, is quit paying attention to what you're paying for and pay attention to what we're saying. It's a great economy. Don't look at the receipt. Listen to us. It's a good economy. You just don't know it. The receipt doesn't tell the whole story. That's the insanity.
And that's why we had stated from the very beginning when this all started, we said they better watch out because they view, because we haven't had inflation for such a long time, they view a good economy is if people have jobs.
Yeah, right.
What they forget about is a person's individual economy is based on what you have left over once you pay all of your bills. Mm-hmm. That's how we judge it. When you've seen the number of people that have gotten a second job. And what really bothers people, as we said, if you have 10% unemployment, 90% of people are still working, and odds are you don't have inflation. With inflation, you can have 99% of the people working, but if one job isn't enough and doesn't cover it, and they need a job and a half, and they still can't keep up on it, their economy sucks.
Yep.
And we had warned the Democrats about this when the Obama economists were saying, don't do this $1.9 trillion COVID bill. It's going to send inflation through the roof. And so they're living by the standards of what people viewed as a good economy 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that doesn't hold what? Inflation changes everything.
Yep.
And they don't seem to care because we know if the Republicans didn't have the House, they'd be spending through the roof even more.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't stop.
Yeah, because the public doesn't care. They're not getting that. They're not feeling that pressure. They're feeling the pressure when they have power. They're feeling that pressure after they didn't perform like they thought they were going to in the House at the midterm. They start feeling the pressure. But if they have all the power, they hit the brakes on it.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. We have, coming up following the top of the hour, the best Pride Month story ever. You are not going to want to miss it. It is the best Pride Month story ever.
Yep.
So, love it. All right. The last word. Okay, nothing is ever a last word on the show. Another word on Bidenomics. The best headline was in Breitbart. From the Breitbart Business Digest. Bidenomics. Keep talking about infrastructure without actually building anything.
Yeah. Yet he's spending the money. Huh? How does that work? Magic. Oh, my gosh. We are so doomed.
Which just shows you we need more money for infrastructure.
Exactly.
If we've got this big infrastructure bill and we're not building anything, that's the evidence that we need more money because we don't have enough money to build the infrastructure so that Breitbart notices it.
Exactly. We need people to be crying. Conservatives need to be crying That's when we know we're spending enough money.
Give me my infrastructure.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
The best thing is our friend in Oregon, Lars Larson, I'll never forget when he was in town one time, and he emails me. He said, my God, Texans know how to do it. You're building roads all over the place.
Yeah, and we don't ever stop.
No, it doesn't ever stop. It doesn't
stop. We don't ever stop. Buddy of mine I've known since grade school. He's in charge of construction crews, and they're doing road construction right now. And he said, I probably won't be able to retire because we're just always working. I said, telling me about it. Oh, my gosh. I'm just on the way to work. It's only a couple of miles. It's like 4 construction zones.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Can you believe we're almost to 4th of July week?
Yeah, that's
Independence Day.
That is crazy.
I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, this year is just is flying by. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
This is the best Pride Month story I have read yet.
Yeah, all right.
Democrat members of the California State Senate walked out of the chamber after Republicans honored former Trump administration acting director of national intelligence, Richard Grenell. Grenell, who is gay, was honored by the chamber Republicans amid LGBT Pride Month. But that did not sit well with some Golden State Senate Democrats. Several of the California upper chamber Democrats who control the Senate majority walked off the Senate floor after Grenell was recognized as, quote, the first openly gay presidential cabinet member, end of quote. Several of the California Democrats were upset. I like the one who said, this is a gay man who hates himself. Oh, so you're judging.
Really?
because he holds more conservative values, as we know on many different topics. California Senate Republicans, however, were more receptive to the nation's former ambassador to Germany, with support from the minority leader as well as the state assembly, as well as some state assembly members. The minority leader told Fox News Digital that when Democrats walked off the Senate floor to protest, in protest of Ambassador Rick Grenell, it highlighted their intolerance towards anyone who is gay and lesbian, but doesn't agree with their far-left ideology. Those Democrats that walked off, by the Democrat standard, are homophobic.
How dare they?
The fact that they would not even acknowledge the first openly gay presidential cabinet member in the United States history. By the way, this is what you call sophisticated political trolling from the Republicans.
Yep.
The fact that they would not...
They write the playbook.
I know. The fact that they would not even acknowledge the first openly gay presidential cabinet member in the United States history proves they really only care about advancing an anti-American, pro-Marxist agenda. They don't give a damn about gay people. All they want to do is promote control over society.
Yeah.
Here it is. This is the Democrat State Senator Scott Wiener. This is their way of celebrating pride by bringing in a guy who is truly a self-hating gay man who takes tons of anti-LGBTQ positions, Wiener said on Monday. There are plenty of gay Republicans who don't do the unhinged things that Grinnell does.
Unhinged.
I'm trying to see what it is.
You're looking for specifics?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Keep looking.
Am I wasting everybody's time?
Keep looking.
I'm looking for the specific things.
We only have 4 more hours. So
okay.
Yeah. But go ahead. Keep looking.
How stupid of me.
Look, hey, you're on vacation next week. You could look all week next week. Keep looking.
That's what I'll spend.
Yeah.
Here it is. Wiener also attacked the former Trump administration official with claims that he is and I really don't know what this means, scam artist pink washer.
Well, they're not calling him a communist because from their perspective, that would be a compliment.
Grinnell responded, "It's an honor to be your enemy. You are a radical voice against common sense, decency, and parental rights." Because Grinnell has come out against, of course, against the grooming.
Yeah.
So now you are a radical if you are promoting the fact that children should not decide to cut off their private parts.
Yeah. Yeah. He's unhinged. Unhinged. And what they mean is he's unhinged from our agenda. He won't attach himself to our agenda. Self-hating. We're walking out.
I'm sorry, I like that story. That was
a bunch of crybabies.
We're
leaving.
I wish I could have been there.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Now, one thing I did hate about yesterday is when the Supreme Court ruling came down on the elections in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Moore versus Harper.
Right.
And this is where they were looking at basically do state courts, do state legislatures have the absolute final say, or when it comes to election laws, and this would have been for gerrymandering, but could be applied to anything that had happened during COVID.
Sure.
And so it was, do state legislatures have the final call? And
do the courts? Yeah,
or does the state court?
Right.
Or does the state court have the final call? Mm-hmm. Well, it was pretty muddled. One thing, and it was funny because I went to SCOTUS blog, and Amy Howe does a great job. I still went over that, and then I started reading the actual decision. And what I hate is when I look at his Supreme Court decision, and my mind, an hour later, feels like I'm doing a calculus problem that I still don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I got out of it was, I don't know, except what I think they did is just kick the bucket down the road. What they said is, well, yeah, the state legislature is the one that makes the law, but there are times when the state courts can get involved in it.
Yeah.
But we can't give you any type of specifics as to when they go too far or when they don't. But the federal courts have the ultimate say, which was interesting because they said, how does this apply to 2020? We don't know, but it does, the Supreme Court ruling. Even the liberal justices who joined the majority
Yeah.
It means that this was really interesting that Biden versus Gore, Bush versus Biden versus Gore. That'd be an interesting debate. Anybody understand what's going on here?
Dangling Hunter.
that the liberal justices who joined the majority on that were basically saying that the right decision was made in 2000.
Yeah, right.
When the federal courts got involved in it and said, no, what you're doing is unconstitutional. Now, look, I understand how tricky it is because when you talk about, state election laws, by the way, these are state election laws for a federal election, to be clear on it.
Right.
So that's why and so it was like, okay, what does, and it was interesting to see the headlines because the headlines, I would look at a conservative publication. Some would say, well, it's confusing. Some said, well, it looks like that we won't have a repeat of 2020 because of this. Others said, well, no, it's a disappointment as to what they did, but it does prove that a Bush versus Gore should have gone Bush's way, even by the liberal justices joining the majority on that. And I went, okay, that's really interesting. But, yeah, it's what you're going to have in the future is you're still going to have more lawsuits.
It just seemed like a narrower ruling than what people were making it out. Some people were interpreting the ruling to be. Yes. In other words, that they would have to revisit everything case by case. In this case, did the North Carolina Supreme Court go too far? And they found that, no, they did not. But because you want to give the legislators of a state, they do have the power to control their elections. Mm-hmm. Can they step outside of that power and do something that is not reasonable or violates the Constitution? And if so, can the state Supreme Court come in, the state courts come in and say, no, you can't do that?
Yes.
And then that's what they found to be, yes, they can't do that. But I don't.
Under limited circumstances.
And that's why I say a narrow ruling, because they're still going to have to visit everything case by case.
Right. Now, this specific case was on, again, the gerrymandering.
Right, yeah.
And so how would that apply to 2020? I don't know. It did seem that you had some more conservative analysts say it might limit the state court's ruling to endorse what an executive branch may do.
Right.
Or the ruling that might happen. But it also says, the interesting thing is, it also says the federal courts have the final determination. But isn't it interesting that when you look at the last election, the Supreme Court basically said, no, states, you handle it.
Right. And because Justice Thomas and Alito and Gorsuch, I think, were on his opinion, the dissenting opinion, basically wasn't saying that the state legislators had that right. He basically, in his opinion, was saying it's a moot point. It's no longer a live controversy, as Amy Howe wrote.
Right.
In this case. So
because now the state Supreme Court has a dominant Republican advantage.
Right.
That's why it's not an issue anymore.
Right. And so
because of it was filed by Republicans.
Right.
So it's not a live issue.
Right. And so you look at it and say, all right, what does that mean? What kind of precedent? And maybe someone will do a better breakdown of it here in the coming days, and bring something to the surface that I'm not looking at. But it doesn't appear to be as wide of a ruling as a lot of people were making it out to be when it broke out yesterday. I could be wrong, and we'll see what the experts break down.
Isn't it interesting that when some of the rulings come down, you're like, okay, I understand this completely. And it's like when it comes to, and I still don't know for all of the legal rulings on gerrymandering.
Yeah.
I still cannot tell you. This is, I guess sometimes these things can happen. I still can't tell you exactly what the constitutional rule is originated from the founding fathers for congressional districts.
Right.
The precedent has, it's gone on for so long. I don't know. I actually don't know. There are things I can tell you that I know. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, Second Amendment, no problem. But when they start trying to figure out these court rulings on gerrymandering, I have no idea. Well, I really don't.
And I guess that's why I see the point made by the dissenting, in this case led by Thomas, is that it is a moot point. Because part of me wants to argue, well, wait a minute, it's not. If you need to, find, or the court needs to determine, who has that ultimate power. But there is no ultimate power assigned by this decision as a precedent or by any law that lawmakers tried to create in that state. In other words, it's still going to be a case-by-case basis when it comes down. Did they make the right move here? Did the Supreme Court, make the right decision in this case? I just don't see it as, and again, maybe somebody can point it out, as a broad decision in that way, in deciding ultimately who has that power, because they're right. If legislators came up with a law in any state, and it was just over the top, you only have 1 hour in the morning on election day to vote, or something stupid, and I'm just making the point, then obviously the court would have to step in and say, all right, that's not reasonable. You're violating the rights, and the voter would be definitely disenfranchised.
Well, okay, let's use this. 5 minutes to vote on election day. The legislature comes in, hypothetically.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Sometimes you need to make these exaggerated arguments.
Exactly.
So the legislature comes in and says, for federal election now, remember, this is for federal elections.
Right.
So for President of the United States in Pennsylvania, you only have, or North Carolina, because this was a state, you only have 5 minutes to vote.
Yeah.
And the state courts comes in and says, yep, that's right. We agree with that. Mm-hmm. Well, what they're saying is the legislature can do that. The state Supreme Court can do that. But the federal government can come in, the federal courts can come in and say, no, that's no good.
Right.
You need to redo that. There needs to be reasonable voting hours. That actually would be election interference. That's interfering with an election where people actually can't vote.
Limiting that, to such a small window, you're limiting the ability of the voter to take action.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets, percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill, nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella with advanced synthetic technology. For more information, go to overdriveonline.com to the Overdrive's Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on Business 101 and many other topics.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, we'll take a look at the latest on the Hunter Biden investigation, and the latest from the audio from CNN about Trump and that Iran document. He came out yesterday and said, no, he was still holding up a bunch of papers. What I thought was interesting was the Fox News report stating that sources from inside the investigation say they're not going after him for that.
Right.
They're not. It's part of the investigation is not to charge him with showing that their effort is that's part of the obstruction of justice, which is this gives you the mindset of the president. It's not about going after him for holding that Iran document, because then you'd have to prove what the that was the Iran document he was holding. You made a great point. We were discussing this off the air, and we'll discuss more about it. Well, then, where's the espionage charge?
Right. Where does that go?
Where does that go?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. So you had a new yesterday, a new, I guess, fill-in for Karine Jean-Pierre. Olivia, I forgot her name now. Is it Halton? I think it is. Yesterday, Dalton,
yeah.
who was there yesterday, and of course, I've never seen her before. She's new to me. Maybe she's a deputy White House press secretary. Maybe she's done a few, but this is the first time that I've ever seen her. But she got the questions. Here's part of it.
What message is the president trying to send to the American people when he invites his son to the state dinner and Camp David, as we saw this past weekend, amid everything he's going through?
Every president of the United States has invited their family to state dinner. This president also has a family. He is no different. And beyond that, I'm just not going to engage on this.
The former White House Press Secretary, Jen Psaki, acknowledged that optically that might not have been easier for the White House. Can you elaborate on that at all? The decision to invite the president's son amid everything that he's going through, and what challenges that poses for this White House to explain.
Like every other administration, like every other president, this president has a family, and he did exactly what many prior administrations have done. And beyond that, I really don't have any comment on this.
About the lunch, President Obama reportedly told President Biden ahead of 2020, quote, "You don't have to do this, Joe. You really don't." Can you say if a similar message was shared today?
I can't, and I don't know what you're referring to.
Regarding whether he should continue to serve in public life.
I don't know what you're referring to, and I don't have any comment on it.
And the follow-ups on last week, does the White House believe Attorney General Garland committed perjury when he testified under oath that Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss could bring charges outside his district?
I don't have any comment on this. Anita?
So what they have found is somebody with a softer voice.
Yeah.
We're going to have a soft, meek voice. Like, I don't know what's really going on. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. What's with all the questions, guys? I detect some aggression.
Well, the New York Times is from Fox. New York Times confirmed one of the bombshell claims made about the Department of Justice's mishandling of its probe into Hunter Biden, but it buried it deep in its Tuesday report after Biden pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax violations and entered a pretrial diversion agreement regarding the felony gun registration charge. The House and Ways Committee released testimony from the 2 IRS whistleblowers. We know that. However, the Times is now confirming that Weiss did, in fact, make such claims about the Department of Justice that he was, they write here, but in mid-2022, Mr. Weiss reached out to the top federal prosecutor in Washington, Matthew Graves, to ask his office to pursue charges and was rebuffed, according to Mr. Shapley's testimony. The Times wrote Tuesday. A similar request to prosecutors in the Central District of California, which includes Los Angeles, was also rejected, Mr. Shapley testified. A second former IRS official who has not been identified told House Republicans the exact same story. That episode was confirmed independently to the New York Times by a person with knowledge of that situation. Now, notably, the confirmation wasn't mentioned until the 21st paragraph of the Times' lengthy report titled "Competing Accounts." Compounds the Justice Department's handling of the Hunter Biden case. The Times did not immediately respond to Fox News' request for comment as to, you finally printed something. But you can't ignore this. And, that's what I saw on, I was thinking about this yesterday. I had mind blank in the first hour when I saw Outnumbered, and they were talking about the fact that the networks are carrying it.
Yeah.
The networks are carrying it. And
right.
now, the networks are talking about, the allegation about, Joe Biden, how this leads to Joe. You cannot not cover this ever. You eventually have to cover it.
Yeah,
and
you're going to have to get around to it. And I guess they were waiting for some kind of move. I don't know if they thought it was going to come from the administration or what, but I'm guessing a lot of the liberal activists in the newsrooms were waiting for something that they could do to, defend Biden in this. But ultimately you can't, because in order to do that, you have to go in and tear down all the evidence that continues to pile up. So you have to cover it. Are they going to cover it in depth? Probably not until it reaches the surface on evidence, I think. And then, that's going to be one of those days where everybody just walks away from Biden. Oh, my gosh, we didn't know how bad this guy was.
And there was a lot of the second whistleblower, the IRS whistleblower yesterday, a lot of discussion on it as more information came out that according to the second whistleblower, the lead IRS case agent for the Hunter Biden investigation, whose name is redacted, the person, I won't say a he, the person wishes to remain anonymous. Hunter Biden set up a scheme involving a Ukrainian natural gas company he sat on the board of and a Chinese business associate to willfully evade paying taxes. Now, what's interesting is separate whistleblowers from the FBI and their source that got that document that talked about the FBI looking at the bribe there. Now, that's the FBI whistleblower and the source to the FBI whistleblower. That was the one, remember, that Jamie Raskin said, well, that's hearsay.
Right. Yep.
As if a source telling you, hey, I was involved I was there when it happened, and here's what's going on. And you tell that to a law enforcement official that's hearsay. He quickly dropped that because hearsay, number one, is in a court of law. It's got nothing to do with an investigation, how you look at an investigation and find out information. So he sort of dropped it. In fact, Raskin, I haven't heard anything from him lately.
No.
Have we?
No.
He said that what did he say that he got pounded on? When he said what he saw there. The hearsay was one of it. There was something else. He got pounded, then he sort of disappeared. But according to the second whistleblower, Hunter Biden set up a scheme involving a Ukrainian natural gas company he sat on the board of and a Chinese business associate to willfully evade paying taxes. A whistleblower said Hunter Biden had already owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes long before his father became vice president. He wasn't paying his taxes back then. In 2014, when Joe Biden was in his second term as vice president in charge of Ukraine policy, and when the Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma put Hunter on the board of directors, Burisma paid Biden $666,667 to do little or no work. According to the whistleblower, this is the second whistleblower now. This is information that came out yesterday. Hunter Biden received the money from Burisma, and instead of reporting it as income and paying taxes on it, he put that money into a Chinese firm run by one of Hunter Biden's associates, who then loaned the money back to Hunter Biden. Now, we know this allegation has been out there. The second whistleblower is now stating it. The whistleblower testified. So Hunter Biden sends this out in an email, and what ends up happening, so imagine this. If you are an owner of a company and your friend tells you that, I want to pay my wages to your company, and then you're going to loan the money back to me, that's essentially what happened here. He took loans from that corporation, which was distributions, and he didn't pay any taxes on those. That's technically money laundering, isn't it? To avoid paying taxes? It's fraud. Because the one thing when they talked about the loan, in order to be a loan, and they said, IRS people look at this all the way, you need, number one, to have a contract for the loan. You need to have a set of payments for the loan, and you need to be paying interest on the loan. If those three things don't exist, those are things that set off IRS agents immediately to look at and go, something's fishy here.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the money and the idea is to avoid taxes by setting it up as a loan, that would have to qualify as money laundering.
So essentially for 24,
I would think.
For 2014, this is from his testimony, we found that Hunter didn't report any of the money he earned from Burisma. So the reason why this is important is because Hunter set it up this way to essentially earn money through his friend's corporation and then have his friend pay him back half of the money as loans, quote, unquote, loans. The whistleblower continued, none of it was taxed, so none of this has been paid or prosecuted, and I would also like to note that the statute has run out on these tax years or on the 2014 tax year. The whistleblower said the Justice Department believed Biden's defense that the money was a loan. You can't loan money yourself. You can't loan yourself your own money. It just doesn't make any sense. When asked if the transaction seemed to be a sham, the whistleblower answered, oh, yes, I would agree that the transaction would. You would want to sham the transactions, yes. So there you go. As the Washington Examiner's Byron York noted, Biden's income in 2014 was not part of the misdemeanor charges against him, and the statutes of limitations were allowed to expire. The whistleblower also noted that Hunter Biden's friend, a wealthy Hollywood celebrity lawyer named Kevin Morse, had paid off the $2.2 million that Hunter Biden owed the IRS for years 2014 through 2019. But that's just part of it. One of the allegations is he hasn't paid, still today, hasn't paid all of his taxes. The IRS is letting him skate on it, that he has not paid all the taxes that he is owed. That came out last week.
Right.
So that's where we are then. By the way, the whistleblower's legal team, and this would be Shapley's legal team, released a letter over the weekend revealing the names of all 6 witnesses who allegedly also heard U.S. Attorney for Delaware David Weiss say he did not have authority to charge in other districts and had requested special counsel status. As we have said here, there's one of 3 things going on. Either Merrick Garland is lying, Weiss is lying, and you would have to ask the question why. It was pointed out that, yes, he was appointed by Trump, but he was already in that position from the Obama administration. Trump just allowed that to continue. Trump actually didn't appoint him. He was there already, and Trump just said stay. And it said, so this isn't a Trump-friendly guy.
Right.
Weiss.
Right.
And that was, I forgot who pointed that out the other day. Maybe it was National Review. I'm not sure. Could have been the Federalist that I'd read that the other day, that he's not a Trump. This guy is not a Trump guy, which the Democrats have been using as a defense. Trump appointed him. No, Trump allowed him to stay. But he was already in there. Temporarily, he was put in there, and then Trump allowed him to stay at that point. But you either have Garland is lying, Weiss is lying, because Weiss did send a letter to Congress last year and stated no, I have full authority. Well, was that taken away from him after he wrote that letter? Is that what happened? Because I believe that was June of last year or July. It was October where he had this meeting and told them, I don't have authority. So either Weiss is lying, and you have to ask the question why he would be lying, Garland is lying, or all the whistleblowers that have been under oath, under the threat of the penalty of perjury, because you can't lie in these cases, are under oath, and everybody else who has made a statement is not under oath.
Right.
Everybody who was taking the opposite opinion has not been under oath.
Right.
Everybody who has taken the opinion that, Weiss could not do his job, and what happened here was just reprehensible when it comes to prosecution of somebody for tax crimes. And again, it's interesting because they still think, oh, he's a drug addict, he's a drug addict,
Yeah,
he's
right.
a drug addict.
Yeah, no, that's going to be their defense.
And then all these sophisticated ways of hiding money.
Yep.
866-90-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
Check out.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, the whistleblower who we know from the IRS, Gary Shapley, actually was on, did an interview with CBS, and it was broadcast last night. And they even bring into it his father, and this was on the CBS Evening News.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that coming up. Plus, the situation with Trump and the investigation into classified information and his latest response. And also another story out there about the Iran war document.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right. When will MSNBC come out and do a segment on how we shouldn't be selling Independence Day? We shouldn't be celebrating this country. Remember? I forgot who did it about 10 years ago. Somebody did that. We were in the old studios.
Well, the last year or two, after the 4th.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. It's already happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Didn't go very far because people were like, I'm sorry, what? Are you saying we shouldn't have the day off?
I'm flying on the 4th in the morning. And I was already thinking, okay, what flag shirt should I wear? And I'm thinking to myself, if somebody complains that I'm wearing a flag shirt on Independence Day, can I be kicked off a plane for triggering someone? Can the airlines force me to change my flag shirt?
Yeah.
Yes.
Turn it inside out.
I mean, the flag shirt I'm thinking of wearing, the whole, it doesn't have like an emblem of a flag. The whole thing is red, white, and blue. The entire shirt is. It's in your face. It's Independence Day, and I'm an American.
So you're saying it's gaudy.
Oh, yeah. Proudly gaudy.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I think I'm going to wear that just to see the reaction. If like somebody sits next to me, I'm offended by that. Well, sorry, my face is my face. Oh, you mean my flag shirt?
Mm-hmm. Well, it could come from either or both directions. Not supposed to wear a flag on a shirt.
Well, it actually isn't a flag.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to, that's not the meaning of the flag. We've heard that before. Don't put it on paper plates.
Yeah.
Okay, when I'm done eating, I'll throw it away. You can't throw the flag away.
It's not a flag.
It's a paper plate.
Yeah.
But it's a flag. I'm not sure how you fly your flags. I don't fly any paper plates at my house, to be clear.
I got to put the filters on my spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
Red, and then I have red and blue, and then I keep some of the natural white there, but it's red, white, and blue. Then I have my electric flag. It's really a cool electric flag. It looks like it's blowing in the wind. I put it in the window, and so far the Homeowners Association hasn't told me to take it down because I only do it on.
Well, make sure you don't talk about it on the radio or anything. Ahead of time.
Like they're listening. No, I've had that thing for like 5 years. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's bright. It lights up the
lights
up the entire driveway. But it's and it says right on it, USA. You know the thing is,
was it made in China?
No.
Are you sure?
Come on, Russia.
Wrong communist. Made in Cuba.
That's made in Cuba.
Come on, Jack.
They make the best electric flags.
Yeah.
And if you're working for that electric flag company in Cuba and you get sick, they have the best health care.
Oh, far better than American health care. Uh-huh.
But do you get the impression, just me talking about the flag shirt and making sure the house is decorated for. Now, I will say this. Some of the subdivisions are really, the lights are on now. I'm like, what is this, Christmas? Oh, no, Independence Day a week from now. When I came into work, there's probably 3 or 4 subdivisions that as you enter them completely lit up in red, white, and blue lights and electric flags and everything. And I'm like, all right, well, this is Texas. But,
yeah, my entire city has them. I mean, they put them all over the city.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So
the flags, not the lights, but yeah.
And so, but do you get the feeling that part of me is doing this? I mean, I'm doing it because I'm an American and I would do it anyway because I've always celebrated Independence Day. I love the Constitution. I love the fact that I live in the United States. I don't want to live anywhere else. When that study is done, would you move to another country? No. I'm staying here. And I'm going to fight for what I believe in. And that's why I do what I do. That's why you do what you do. It's what we believe. And so, no, I'm not going anywhere else. I may visit. I may visit Canada to play golf. But I'm not staying there. And I may visit Portland to play golf, but not. Oh, wait a minute. They are part of the United States. Sorry. But you get the impression that part of me, because I think it would be true if you were under this impression that first reason I do it is because I wish to celebrate Independence Day. The second reason is if I bother somebody by it and trigger them, that would be like the special bonus. That would be the whipped cream and the cherry on top of the great milkshake.
Well, you'd have to live outside of Texas for that to happen. Bothering people with flags isn't kind of our thing. Yeah. You'd have to maybe go to Austin, maybe.
Well, you never know. You get on a plane. Somebody says, I don't like the fact that the American flag is offensive.
Well, given that every other middle-aged male on that plane is probably going to be wearing a flag shirt. I'm guessing it's not going to be a thing.
I probably will be safe, and you know why? I probably will be okay on the plane because a long time ago I did the mask survey.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to see where the fewest people wore masks anywhere in society, when I started flying again, it was on airplanes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if I use the mask rule, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just remember, for those that may not know, if someone's wearing an Old Navy shirt, you don't say thank you for your service. That's not what that means. Because there could be people that don't remember Old Navy. Okay, for those under 80, a mall was this one huge building where you could go from store to store and not have to go outside. And they had a place called Old Navy, not military. You don't have to say thank you for your service. It could be that person did serve, but not the shirt is not the indicator.
Now, thinking about it, I am flying American Airlines.
Yeah. Yeah, there would be a problem.
So if American Airlines has problem with my flag shirt.
Yeah.
Your name is American?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's not going to work.
And don't they have the blue and red stripes?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I think my flag shirt should be acceptable.
I'm guessing.
I could imagine. Talk show host gets kicked off plane for wearing flag shirt.
Well, I would think it would be quite the opposite on the 4th. I'm sorry, you're not wearing a flag shirt. You'll have to wait until tomorrow.
Yes. I get compliments whenever I wear it.
Yeah.
And I actually have a picture of when my mom was alive. When I only wear it. It's actually like a button shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I wore it one time. It's one of my favorite pictures with my mom from about 3 years before she died. So about 6 years ago, I wore it one time. And so I just loved it. And when I posted that, I got so much response going, your mom looks great, and so does the shirt.
Yeah.
You know, probably, though, what they'll say is when I get kicked off the plane, it wasn't that you wore the shirt, but we listened to your radio show how you were hoping it would trigger somebody.
Yeah, there you go.
That's why.
Yeah.
If you hadn't opened your big mouth, you'd be okay.
Yeah, it's not the shirt, it's you. Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I'll be on a Texas beach. I think it'll be required that you're wearing, because we'll have the flag on my truck. We'll have a flag on the tent. And I'll definitely be wearing one of my, I don't know how many shirts I have now with flags on it. Except this time I'm going to remember to wear an American flag shirt. It's hard. Is that a flag from Uruguay?
It's so tempting.
Where would you even get that?
It's just so tempting to wear the Russian flag or the
big,
Chinese flag.
Big sale at Old Navy. It was a big. People mostly miss those sales. It was a clearance sale. 10 for $1.
What flag you wearing? Well, this week I'm promoting North Korea.
Yeah. They were 10 for $1.
Yes.
What are you going to say?
Very cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. That's you don't want to do that. Make sure you choose the American flag.
And I have, and I'll be home early on in Texas on 4th of July, so I'll, all my flags. I don't have the big flag. I have the electric flag, but my spotlights, and then I take all the little flags and put them all across the front lawn and even in the back lawn so people can see them when they're walking down the jogging path.
Yeah,
and
for the week of Independence Day, I keep those up. I'll put them up probably Friday. and then just keep it.
And I love it. I mean, I just love doing it for, Independence Day. I just love it.
I'm
Absolutely
going overboard because on the smaller flags that I put along the garden, one had a stick break, and so I thought, okay, well, I need to replace that, and then I ordered 2 dozen more. It's a thing. I got a sale, and now I'm just going to have to find a place for all the flags.
And so I can tell this, and probably a lot of people can relate. This goes back a couple of years ago. I put the flags up, and the smaller flags, you put them in the ground, and one apparently wasn't in good enough, and I came out like an hour and a half later, and it was bent over, and the flag was touching the ground, and I was absolutely horrified. Absolutely. I mean, it just shows. I mean, that's the mentality that we have. It's like, and if you want to call it blind, I don't have blind loyalty to anything. I mean, the reason that I have the loyalty that I have and the love that I have is based on very specific ideas of what the United States stands for.
Sure.
But if you want to say on 4th of July I have blind loyalty, you can say, well, the impression is by everything you do, you have blind loyalty. I'll say, yeah, okay, today you can say that. I'm not going to argue with you. We'll debate that tomorrow. But, yeah, for today, call it blind loyalty. I'll take that one.
And hopefully we'll end the day with all 10 fingers.
Well, I don't plan on it is Tuesday. I mean, it's not I don't know. Yeah, the lake will people are taking 4-day weekends, I'm sure, or taking the whole week off.
I stopped by a big warehouse on the way to the beach last year, and we had fireworks every year, but I ramped it up last year. So this year we got to go overboard again. And so we take them out to the beach and set them off. I thought there were going to be, probably a dozen of us with big fireworks displays on the beach. And a couple of people had smaller fireworks, but apparently I had the big show.
Yeah, they're not.
But it was fun.
They're not going to have. They don't have any more fireworks at the lake. I mean, it got to be out of control. They do it now, I believe, at the near the racetrack.
Right.
We have the big racetrack in DFW in my town, but it used to be. They used to put up fences so people didn't park on the side of the roads because there's a lot of rural areas there, and you would go through where I live, and it would look. You would think you were in a concentration camp. I mean, there were so many fences or a prison that were put. That's what it reminded me of, and it was to keep people. And I think it just got to be too crazy out there because they already close almost every weekend. The lake closes by like 10 or 11 o'clock. Not the lake, but the park. The big park on the lake closes by 10 or 11 o'clock because it's too crowded. You can't even get in. And so add fireworks, and they just said it's too much.
If you go along I-35 from here north on the night of the 4th, you'll see in the distance, you'll probably see 7 or 8 fireworks displays in that range.
I may do that. I mean, there's
pretty cool.
There's a huge hill that's right near me that goes up about. It's the tallest part of all of North Dallas. And I will look north and west, and you're sitting up about, I don't know, probably 600 feet in the air. That's going to be quite impressive.
Yeah.
I may do that on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool
on the 4th.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, we will get to the audio that we have from CBS, and covering the whole Hunter Biden situation, and actually interviewing the whistleblower. And they even mention the whistleblower saying that the Department of Justice tried to do everything they could to keep this from getting to Joe Biden, and that's on CBS. And so I guess the point is you can't really hide it. Quickly on the whole Trump thing, because you and I talked about it a little bit on the air and some off the air. he had come out yesterday and just said, no, he was never waving the Iran document in front of them. We had said it yesterday. You see the audio and you're like, okay, what is the Department of Justice trying to do? Because a story came out today that said the Department of Justice, from sources, Fox News story, they're not looking to charge him for having the Iran document. And so we're wondering, okay, where does that go for the Espionage Act? And so what would be the purpose of using that? Well, the purpose of using that is not that you're going to charge what he was doing there. So whether he was waving the fake stuff or not doesn't matter. It's the fact that it shows the mindset that he had no problem keeping classified documents. And so you get to obstruction of justice. Whether that could lead to some other case of the espionage charge, we don't know. We don't know what they're up to. But that came out from Fox that they're not going to charge him with holding that. And that takes, when he's out there saying, I wasn't waving it, doesn't matter. That's not what they're looking at. They're looking at what was his mindset.
Yeah, if the story from Fox News, if the source story is accurate, then it really undermines the espionage charge altogether, because then you're trying to build it just basically, well, he was, it gets back to this whole willful thing. Well, but now you have to look at every ex-president, you have to look at the current president, and you have to look at all of that and say, all right, on the obstruction charge, they're going to go, the defense is going to go, we were negotiating the whole time. We were negotiating the whole time. We were negotiating the whole time. He was trying to go through these documents, and you take a lot of the essence out of the case. If they had some kind of hard evidence, like a video, just imagine that the author was not an author, but they were a documentary producer or something, and they had a camera, and they had something on camera.
Yeah.
Then I think that would be a stronger case. But I think this is a weak case. We'll see where they go.
The fourth branch of government. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
I don't even know how to respond to that. The fourth branch of government, Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley. He's president. I'm vice president. He does all the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I live down the road a little bit from him, and I entertain all night as vice president because Eric will not give me any responsibility as vice. Kamala Harris has more responsibility than Eric has given me.
Does she really?
As the fourth branch of government.
Really?
No, she doesn't.
Really?
No. Isn't it amazing how they keep throwing both of them out there like every single day to answer questions, and she's all over the place? It's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, she's just so...
She's been all over the place lately, and it's just like, get her off.
Well, the problem is that they're trying to boost her profile. And DeSantis has already basically said, look, if you're voting for Joe Biden in 24, you're really voting for her.
Yeah, Nikki Haley has been big on that one, too.
So you're not going to, no one believes that Biden is going to be able to serve out a second term. There's a lot of questions as to whether or not he can serve out a first term. So if he steps down, she's it. And I think it's a great play by the GOP.
In fact, coming up at the top of the hour, we'll talk a little bit because Pence said something yesterday on issues. Trump said a couple of things on issues yesterday, and so did DeSantis. Mm-hmm. And I went, huh? For all three of them. I went, huh? Okay, this is where you're going. Mm-hmm. All right, but we'll get to that coming up. Want to get to the CBS report yesterday from their evening news on the IRS whistleblower saying that he was told not to pursue This is the headline from CBS News because they interviewed Gary Shapley. IRS whistleblower says he was told not to pursue leads involving President Biden. Mm-hmm. So on CBS, it means they've moved past just trying. And we said they couldn't. You can't continue to focus on Hunter Biden, separate him from the president on these issues. You just can't. It's impossible. You can do it temporarily, as they've tried to do it, but you can't do it forever. So here is this. I'll start actually with the entire report from. This is such a rare occurrence. This has been such a rare occurrence on the mainstream media that we're going to play you the whole report.
Yeah. All right.
Here we go. All right.
Now to a CBS News exclusive with the first television interview with IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley since he spoke with lawmakers last month. A lead investigator in the Hunter Biden case tells CBS's Jim Axelrod that he felt the president's son received preferential treatment and in a stunning claim says that he was blocked from pursuing leads that could have led to the president himself.
If this was any other person, they likely would have already served their sentence.
Gary Shapley was a lead IRS supervisory agent in Operation Sportsman, the investigation into Hunter Biden. Shapley said he uncovered conduct that warranted more serious charges.
There were personal expenses that were taken as business expenses. Prostitutes, sex club memberships, hotel rooms for purported drug dealers.
How much did Hunter Biden owe in taxes?
So from 2014 to 2019, it was $2.2 million.
The back taxes were paid off, and last week, the Trump-appointed U.S. Attorney in Delaware, David Weiss, reached an agreement with Hunter Biden. The president's son would admit to a firearm charge and plead guilty for his failure to pay taxes. If a judge signs off, the deal means no jail time.
Testimony we have just released details a lack of U.S. attorney independence.
And Shapley told lawmakers that U.S. Attorney Weiss was blocked from bringing stronger charges. But U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said last week that Weiss was not.
I'd say he was given complete authority to make all decisions on his own.
I documented exactly what happened, and it doesn't seem to match what the Attorney General or the U.S. Attorney are saying today.
Shapley provided lawmakers this contemporaneous email he wrote after an October meeting last year. Shapley says Weiss told him the opposite, that Weiss is not the deciding person on whether charges are filed.
It was just shocking to me.
Shapley, who is still working for the IRS, told us that even before President Biden took office, he was directed to avoid leads involving Hunter's father.
There were certain investigative steps that we weren't allowed to take that could have led us to President Biden.
And you wanted to take them?
We needed to take them.
And you weren't allowed to take them?
That's correct.
It is important to point out that at that point in Shapley's investigation, Donald Trump was still president, and his Attorney General, William Barr, had rules in place that may have limited what Shapley could pursue. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware had no comment. As for Hunter Biden, his attorneys did not respond to us, but he said before in a statement that he is taking responsibility for mistakes he made during a period of turmoil.
There you go. By the way, the whole statement that part of this was done during the Trump administration doesn't hold any water because the FBI was corrupt and the Department of Justice corrupt under the Trump administration.
Right.
Going after Trump. So
right.
That doesn't mean anything.
No.
And I do think there's some questions that Bill Barr needs to answer. Did he know about it?
Well, that's, there's another thing that, and I think we touched on it the other day, but there are two things. We've been asking, where's the IG on all of this? Was there, is there a report due? What is the process essentially that involves the IG? What part of the whistleblower process took place, and what can the IG tell the oversight committees? Then it's exactly what you just mentioned, William Barr.
Well, that goes up to 2020, and so you want to what were the rules that you gave, and what did you know about that?
Yeah, did you know specifically about this, or was there just a blanket set of rules where they couldn't act on this?
But remember, it was October of 2022, not even a year ago, that this is where Weiss apparently had the meeting and told him. So he might have been told something else before. And then by the time it got to October, that's why he told the investigators, I'm not in charge of it last year. So the timeline is important in this too.
Yeah, right.
As to the Weiss investigation, as to stalling it out during the Trump administration, you need to, and if it happened during Barr's tenure, that question needs to be asked to him also.
Right. Yep.
But we know that inside the management of the Department of Justice, even if Barr took over, there was a ton of rot inside the Department of Justice and the FBI when Barr was still there.
Yeah.
So he might have known, he might not have known, but he does have to be asked that question. And I find it interesting that he has been, before this came out, the actual Weiss thing and the timeline of it, Barr was out publicly speaking all the time. Why hasn't he spoken, to this, or why hasn't the media asked him any questions?
Right. Yeah. There's way too much silence on this. If the concern, which it is, the greatest concern is whether or not the current president is compromised. I believe he is. The whistleblowers believe that he is. Ultimately, I mean, they haven't put it in those words, but ultimately they spell it out in their allegations. Because they believe it goes right to the president, the current president, then former vice president. And now you're going to have to look at these allegations. The story's not going away. If CBS is doing the story, and the best they could do to defend Biden was that note about, well, during Trump and Barr had rules and blah, blah, blah. They said there possibly were rules in place.
Right. And
that's
they didn't cite sources, didn't cite anything.
Didn't cite anything. But that's the best defense, the only thing close to defense, which is really no defense at all, of the Bidens in a CBS story.
And that doesn't take away the biggest picture of influence peddling. That doesn't take away that at all.
Not at all.
Which is really the big picture. This was an op-ed piece. Eileen O'Connor wrote it in the Wall Street Journal. She headed the U.S. Justice Department's tax division from 2001 to 2007. And this really gained momentum. We asked the question last week, and the headline is, "Throw Hunter Biden's plea deal in the trash." The IRS whistleblowers say justice sabotaged the investigation. So how can the agreement stand? And this is where, you and I talked about. I mean, what can the judge hear? Does the judge have to? We know the judge does not have to accept the plea deal, but what are the parameters that a judge can reject it? And I started thinking, for example, more on a state level. For example, if somebody has committed murder, all right, and that the police have done an investigation and believe they have the evidence, and then a plea deal is done. Again, I'm exaggerating this here for the sake of the argument. Charges them with jaywalking. That's what you plead guilty to. Yeah. When is the point that a judge and then you find out, okay, that everything was stopped. The police are saying the prosecutors didn't want to hear what we were telling them. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it. Could the judge say this plea deal is garbage? Probably. I think that's sort of what she's trying to say here is, going through the supervisory agent Shapley in 14 years, and the fact that he still works, by the way, for the IRS. Talked about the criminal investigator who chose to remain anonymous. And she said the plea agreement reached between Mr. Weiss and the president's son gives credence to the whistleblower statements. The judge to whom that agreement is presented on July 26 ought to consider rejecting it. IRS special agents are the agency's criminal investigators. They are the best in the world at tracking down the proceeds of crime. Because of this, they are frequently invited by other federal law enforcement agencies to participate in matters far removed from tax crimes. They work hand in hand with the assistant U.S. attorneys and Justice Department tax prosecutors to obtain search warrants and other authorization necessary to expand leads. And then goes on to talk about the entire thing here and basically saying, as somebody who headed the Department of Justice Tax Division, you're talking about the elite of all investigators for criminal activity and, tax evasion and everything else that's involved in it, and saying these people are credible.
Yeah.
And you need to throw this out. You need to throw this plea deal out and wait, because this stinks of the prosecution being dirty and in cahoots with the defendant.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. And so reading, Eric, from this, let me get her name again, Eileen O'Connor, who was the head of the Department of Justice's tax division between 2001 and 2007, talking about the fact that under federal law, you have to charge where the crimes were committed. And
right.
and that's why that the, it was California for the crimes committed between 2016 and 2019, and District of Columbia 2014 and 2015. Mm-hmm. And so you have to do that. Otherwise, it can be thrown out of court. So that's why you do it, and they were refused there. Also, she was saying that that it was basically what he didn't pay for the 2 years was like, there it is. The criminal information, the charging document in the absence of an indictment prepared by Mr. Weiss's office, to which Hunter Biden will reportedly plead on July 26, states that Mr. Biden received but didn't pay federal taxes on taxable income of $1,500,000 in 2017 and 2018. House Oversight Committee Republicans claim to have seen Treasury Department suspicious activity reports suggesting Mr. Biden received vastly more than that during the years the IRS was investigating. And if this deal is done and he has immunity from anything else, which, again, we don't know specifically what the deal is, well, that means he could get away with not paying taxes on all of that money, because they were talking the Republicans are saying $8.3 million is what they see that went to Hunter alone during that amount or during that time period.
Yeah.
And for the Biden family members, what was it, $17 million?
Mm-hmm.
17 point something million. And she's saying that judge can reject plea agreements. That would be an appropriate disposition here, and Congress, in fulfillment of its oversight obligation, must learn and share with the American public what evidence the IRS has gathered. So she's saying the judge can say, sorry, this plea deal is set aside until we figure out what's going on.
I think that is quite possible now, and according to her, they can do it. Let's see if the judge actually does it.
Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. We is he, Eric Harley, and me, Gary McNamara. He, me, our pronouns.
Uh-huh. Or the new GOP candidate in Montana, she, he. That's his name.
I know.
I didn't give him his name. By the way, he looks like a strong candidate. Very strong GOP candidate. And it's spelled Sheehy. Pronounced Sheehy. I didn't give him the name.
Definitely non-binary.
I wonder if he has fun with the whole pronoun thing. He's got it.
All right, very quickly before we get back, because I want to get back to something that you had said about that Eileen O'Connor, who ran the tax division of the Justice Department from 2001 to 2007, and you brought up a great point. But before we get there, just very quickly, because since you brought up the candidate from South Dakota, yesterday I thought was an interesting day. You have Trump attacking. I have no idea, why he's using this. He's using against DeSantis, again, COVID, that DeSantis was weak on COVID. And this DeSantis liked Fauci. Like, wow, you're trying to sell that? Really? But then DeSantis was out there talking about the fact that he said he'll drain the swamp, but I'll actually do it. That might have been okay. But when he said, and I'll really build a wall, he couldn't build a wall, I'll build a wall. Like, wow, there's so many other ways to hit it. And then Pence comes out and attacks DeSantis and says what DeSantis is doing is anti-capitalism, the whole thing about, Disney. And I'm thinking from Pence's moral, Pence is viewed, and I'm not saying this as an insult or sarcastically, if you're talking about being a moral conservative, there probably is no one with a reputation that's stronger than Pence.
Right.
And for him to come out and state that, DeSantis, what he is doing to Disney is unfair, where Disney had benefits that no other business runs by. In the state of Florida, nobody got the benefits that Disney got. There was basically a special dispensation for Disney. And he simply said, if you're going to come out and you're going to publicly come out against a bill and you're going to promote the fact that children should be taught sexualized content and should be told as 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old that boys should be girls, if you're advocating for the position of the radical transgender activist movement that's talking about the fact that children should be the deciders of whether they can mutilate their bodies, sorry, you don't get the special benefits anymore. If Pence is trying to make that into that DeSantis doesn't believe in capitalism, I just shook my head going, I have no idea where you're going. These candidates, so many of them, Trump was saying, how come you're attacking DeSantis? And he's like, well, because he's in second place. Well, how come you're not attacking anybody else? Because they're not in second place. And he said, Ramaswamy, a good guy. Tim Scott, a good guy. All good guys. Good guys. Like them all. And of course, you always go after the person in second place, and the person in second place always goes after the person in first place. That's what you that's what you do. But it was a day where I just went. It seems like the vast majority of candidates are extremely weak. I don't know why Tim Scott's running. I haven't heard anything that he has said which you would view as newsworthy that you want. Now, Pence said something that was newsworthy, but it was it doesn't relate. I don't know how that helps your campaign at all. And DeSantis, I thought he could be stronger, but you don't hear anything from Nikki Haley. You don't hear nobody's. And in order to win, you have to go after Trump. You have to.
Sure.
Now, they're still not going to win. But if you're in the race, why are you there?
Right.
What's the purpose of being there? And so that would be, if I'm, okay, you want me to fundraise for you? Why?
Well,
why should I give you money?
I think right now the fundraising game has been turned upside down. I think early on there was, you get, and Trump has been able to leverage the whole thing, the two-tier justice system and all that a couple of times, and he's raised some money that way. It's at least several $1 million based on the indictments against him, the raid on Mar-a-Lago, and all that. Then when DeSantis gets in the game, he's got some donors that were waiting in the wings to give him some of the funds. But I really honestly don't know where it goes, because from this point on, you're really going to have to get out there and earn it. And because you don't have those massive funds, I mean, all besides Trump, I know DeSantis has some, but you don't have the funds that you'll have if you get them in 2024. So everything is about stumping. Everything is about making a statement. Everything is about getting out there and doing an interview or speaking at, if whatever event it might be. And you're essentially, that's how you're going to woo those big donors ultimately in the end. And we've been saying, watch the fundraising between now and that first debate in August. Well, man, as of this weekend, we can say the first debate is next month. And that's, that's crazy to think, but you really, it goes by in a flash. And I really wonder where the big donors are right now.
Again, I'm looking at it from my perspective of what I know, and I don't know what the polls show. For example, DeSantis, because I think DeSantis was right in a couple of things that he said. If I'm a political consultant, and this is whenever we talk about this is about we're political consultants analyzing what they should do, what they should do right now in a very strange situation for Republicans because of the support for Trump in the Republican Party because of the two-tier system of justice. Mm-hmm. And that's just huge right now. You cannot deny it. But I do think that, one of the things that DeSantis actually did that probably hit it, he said, the idea of draining the swamp in some respect, I think, misses it a little bit. We didn't drain it. It's worse today than it's ever been by far, and that's a sad testament on the state of affairs of our country. But even if you're successful at draining it, the next guy can just refill it, so I want to break the swamp. The Florida governor said he would drop the hammer on some federal agencies, including the Justice Department, the FBI, Internal Revenue Service, and end the weaponization of government. His promise of a more aggressive approach than Trump's ignores the potential legal hurdles if he encounters the election next November. That's why, for example, on the wall, because he actually went after him on the wall 2 days before, basically saying, we're going to mobilize at emergency day one. You can say all that, but the only reason that Trump didn't get his wall done was the federal courts. Mm-hmm. That's why he didn't get it done. So I view that as being a little weak. But I did think that he hit a couple of good things where he said here, because this is something that was a sore spot for people. A voter told DeSantis most of us in the room voted to drain the swamp twice. He asked why he's the one to get it done this time as opposed to the other choice, which would be Trump. He said, I remember those rallies in 2016. It was exciting, drain the swamp. I also remember lock her up, right? And then 2 weeks after the election, oh, no, forget about it. Forget I ever said that. No. One thing you get from me, if I'm going to tell you I'm going to do something, I'm not saying that just for an election. Now, that's a sore spot with a lot of Republicans there. Then, again, talking about draining the swamp, I think one of the things that he may hit him on, because you and I, when Trump, remember Peter Navarro was out there, the Lordstown, remember the electric vehicle and the electric truck, and Trump was out there promoting how this is going to be great and everything else, and promoting this is where the government's doing good things, and we said it's a load of crap. It's the same BS being sold by Democrats. Mm-hmm. And we said when Trump did that with Peter Navarro out there, how we're saving, the Ford plant and making it here. And we told our audience, we got some pushback because at that point it was still whatever Trump does is right, no matter whether he's a conservative or not in it, because it's Trump. And we said, no, sorry, Doesn't matter whether it's Trump or anybody else. We don't care. Either it's the right move or it's not the right move. Well, they filed bankruptcy yesterday, Lordstown.
Yeah.
Only made a couple of dozen of vehicles. Had no sales.
Right.
It was a complete bust. And Trump supported it. And it's about EVs. DeSantis should hit that big time.
Yeah.
Big time he should hit that.
Sure.
Because that's something right now with the grid and everything else and energy and oil and natural gas production, this is what you have to look at and say, Trump on one hand, he wanted to promote the expansion of it, but he was pushing for EVs. He's pushing for ethanol. He's pushing for everything that the Democrats are pushing for that will make the country not, self-sufficient in energy.
Right.
You can't have it both ways. You can't be pushing both sides because the Democrats attempt to do that. You've got to be crystal clear on it, and Trump was not. I'm saying that would be the advice as a political analyst I would give to DeSantis at this point. I believe...
Well, because it resonates, especially where we are with all the mandates on EVs and everything else, and the fact that Ford has come out and you've seen their numbers tank as a result of EV production and the lack of profits, and the sector is flailing. I mean, you have companies like Rivian right now that everybody's looking at going, wow. I mean, long term, how do you make this work? Right. If you don't pour, and there's less support now than you've ever had for pouring more government incentives into it, more government money. And you can't do that forever.
But I just thought it was a weak point by DeSantis saying, he didn't get the wall built, I will. Mm-hmm. That's what he basically said. Well, you still have to go through the same. Do you believe that if the courts didn't stop him, that Trump would not have built the wall? I don't think you're going to convince many people of that. I just thought there was a poor angle for DeSantis. Mm-hmm. And like I said, with Pence, I'm just shaking my head going, wow, you really have nothing.
Yeah.
Because if that's what you're coming out with. Because Democrats were attacking him on that. Mm-hmm. And so was Nikki Haley, in a way, saying, bring Disney here. And it's like, do you understand? I mean,
why would you jump into that?
Right.
Why
is there any self-awareness there?
Right. Well, and again, I don't know why that is going on with some Republicans. I don't know what the game is. Is it that Disney's too big to take on? That they're so ingrained in this mindset that, no, it's a huge corporation. We can't take them on. We're going to lay down like Republicans have done in the past. Because if that's your game, I want no part of it. None. I don't care how big. In fact, the bigger the corporation, then the harder they should fall for this kind of mindset that children at such young ages should be taught sexualized content.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I don't care how big the corporation is. That's a problem. If you're going to say, well, we're going to look the other way on this because they create jobs, because they bring revenue into the state. Tell your kids that.
Go join the Democratic Party at that point.
Yep. That's far beyond being a sellout.
Yeah. And so when Pence said it, I don't
get that.
That blew my mind yesterday. I'm just like, wow.
You saw that Trump was speaking to evangelists the other day, and I thought to myself, well, I don't know if Pence has actually done it. Maybe it just didn't make the news. But if you're going to say any of the candidates right now that would appeal to the evangelists, it would be Pence.
Yeah.
So that whole move on in position on Disney just doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
At all.
And in fact, Pence should actually be hitting the flip-flop that Trump is being accused of doing on abortion, where when he was president, we'll put people in jail, Supreme Court justices to do it, and now, well, we believe now that there should be exceptions for abortion, life of the mother, rape, incest, all that, which was not the position that he held. And so if you're looking at weakening from Pence's point of view, that would be something that you would hit.
Right. Yeah, I don't get the whole play on Disney.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, if you're going to hit morality or you're going to hit the culture, religious, conservative issues out there, the abortion is the one that I would hit if I'm a political. And I'm doing this as what I would do as a political consultant. That's how we do this to each candidate.
Right.
That's our mindset going into this. not that we necessarily personally believe this. We're talking about how you target certain candidates to go after the other candidates is what we're doing here, just so you understand that. So, 866-90 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Roadside inspections all begin with the driver interview, during which the officer will gather basic information from the driver and prepare the driver for the inspection. The officer will also be evaluating the driver, determining if the driver can speak English, is under the influence of anything, has an illness, or is fatigued. The officer will ask the driver for required documents, including vehicle and driver credentials, the driver's log, and shipment paperwork. The officer may also conduct a vehicle inspection. Before beginning the inspection, the officer will take steps to make sure the inspection can be done safely. These include chalking the wheels, wearing personal protective equipment, and explaining what will be required of the driver. The driver needs to pay close attention to these instructions so that the vehicle inspection can be conducted in a manner that is safe for the inspection official. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. So, I know we got off the topic a little bit that we were on, but it was interesting. I just want to touch on this before we talk about what might be the energy future of America that could replace fossil fuels. Really, this is less than a year old because it was the U.S. Geological Survey presented this model, and a lot of scientists and the oil companies are now jumping on this, and we'll tell you what it is coming up following the bottom of the hour. But you made a point about that judge for looking at the Hunter Biden deal, and it's something we asked before, but you said the first question she should ask is, this plea deal, why?
Why? What is the defendant giving you?
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about, well, we just want to save the taxpayer money on the trial, well, that's not enough because you have overwhelming evidence here.
Right.
Before the plea deal, you had and everybody knew it, the overwhelming evidence for these particular charges.
Yeah.
So what is there what can he offer the government in return is what I would want to know.
Right.
Because that's really the basis of a plea deal. It's not just about saving taxpayer money because this has been going on for a long time.
The investigation that they believe, because I asked this as a judge, well, what I get from these investigators, from what I've heard from them, is the evidence was so slam dunk, you could have done this way before the statute of limitations.
Right.
This was cut and dry. This wasn't that complicated to do so. So why?
Yeah.
Why did you do it?
Right.
What's the purpose? Is he rolling over on somebody else? Is he rolling over on the big guy?
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, that's what I want to know. What is he giving up that makes this a sweet deal?
Is he
going to
give you The Godfather and Luca Brasi?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So you and I were just, we're talking about, where the country is going when it comes to solar and wind and energy and everything else, and we're just saying, they're doing everything wrong. It is important to bring up, and this is really because it was October of 2022. Wow, everything happened last October, didn't it?
A lot did, yeah.
Is when the U.S. Geological Survey presented a model to the Geological Society of America. When we talk hydrogen, you've heard that talk maybe a little bit more. It still isn't widespread news out there, but the problem with hydrogen is the fact of making it. And for the process of electrolysis for making hydrogen out of water, you need more electricity. You need to put more in than you actually get out of it. That's always been the problem. But what if natural hydrogen exists? And really in the last couple of years, it has come where the belief is now that there is a great chance that there is enough natural hydrogen in the ground that actually the researchers say, this is from science.org, say water rock reactions deep within the earth continuously generate hydrogen, which percolates up through the crust and sometimes accumulates in underground traps. And that's how they first found it, basically in 2012. In a small village, was Mali is, I think, the country where they actually found it. Fires were happening, and they realized it was natural hydrogen. And so all of the oil companies, were you reading an article recently that all the oil companies now are behind it?
Well, you have BP, Shell, and Chevron that are part of a consortium that are looking into, exploring this as a really, it's many are calling it an endless source. So what they're finding is that these conditions are all right in the areas where in a tectonic rift there is iron, lots of iron, and lots of water. The water and that iron are creating that, and it's kind of a mid-level degradation of that iron. It's not quite to the rust stage, but in that setting, it's producing this hydrogen naturally. So you get this in the earth naturally. You get it. They're finding it in abandoned coal mines, and that's happening naturally too, not as a result of any work that had been done in those coal mines. They're finding it here, of course, in the States. They're finding it in Australia. They're finding it in parts of Africa. They're finding it in parts of France. So the idea is, and they call it fully dispatchable, which means this is usable. And they say that there could be right now, this doesn't count what the Earth will generate going forward, but right now there could be 150 trillion metric tons of natural hydrogen. 1 billion tons would power the entire U.S. for a full year.
So it would last the rest of my lifespan.
At least. And you think about that, and the major OEMs all have some type of hydrogen fuel car that's out there. Honda has been kind of the leader. I said all, it may not be all, but a number of them have. And I was looking at a list of the fuel cell vehicles that are out there. And you know, I think the question would be, because a fuel cell vehicle, a hydrogen vehicle, really is it really is an EV. And so if you look at it from that way, you're talking about no carbon emissions here, right? If you were to set up the grid in that we could use hydrogen for powering the U.S. and powering vehicles, the OEMs would be on board. If it was plentiful energy, the OEMs would be manufacturing in a massive way. And let's see if that happens. I guess they're waiting to see if the energy companies are going to go after this and how feasible it is, what it's going to cost to get it essentially from the ground to the pump or to your home, wherever that's going to be, wherever it's going to be used, and what the concerns would be. And also, again, we're not set up to use hydrogen just yet, but how long would that take? What are we talking about in terms of having to completely, if you think about it, redo the grid? But would we? I guess is the question I would have, and I don't know the answer to that question. How much could hydrogen just fill in terms of natural gas? How much of that equation changes in terms of powering the grid if we are going to go for, again, something that could easily be deemed as a sustainable source? And you look at that, and it solves so many things. the intermittency issues with wind and solar, well, that's gone. And the fact that the Earth keeps producing it. And also, I would have to say, because I go back to Harold Vinegar, one of the engineers at Shell over 30 years, he found out how to speed up the process of converting that shale oil, the rock, to oil and natural gas through in situ conversion. And my question would be, if we discover how the Earth, and apparently we have, is producing this hydrogen, can it not teach us something about producing it ourselves if we ever got to the point of it not being feasible, and not being fully dispatchable based on the locations of the naturally occurring hydrogen and all of that? I mean,
as this is from Science.com, and they talk. This is an article written in February. They said critically, natural hydrogen may not be only clean but also renewable. It takes millions of years for buried and compressed organic deposits to turn into oil and natural gas, as we know. By contrast, natural hydrogen is always being made afresh when underground water reacts with the iron minerals at elevated temperatures and pressures. In the decades since boreholes began to tap hydrogen in Mali, flows have not diminished. Hydrogen appears almost everywhere as a renewable source of energy, not a fossil fuel, but it's still the early days, as they note. Scientists don't still completely understand how it forms and migrates, and most important, whether it accumulates in a commercially exploitable way, which again that's the problem.
Well,
that's always the problem.
And the experts in the Forbes article, and Forbes has done a series of these, essentially starting last fall, and they had a new article that they posted yesterday, and their experts say it's fully dispatchable. Well, okay, but what does that mean? How feasible is it? In other words, what would have to happen if you were to lay it out in, I don't know, a 10-step plan in a very basic layman understanding kind of way of how we would take this naturally occurring hydrogen and use it? What would have to happen? Because if the entire grid has to be rebuilt, now you talk about, I don't know, what kind of investment. What do we know about the naturally occurring? Is it that it really is endless, or are we too early in the process to know exactly how any one location might produce that hydrogen? Because when you go in and you look for natural gas and you go in for oil, they can basically determine, they kind of know that one spot may not be giving up that oil for a certain period of time. It's going to be a finite amount of oil coming from any one location, right? Well, this may not be, or it may be. It may be that, okay, at some point, when there is a crossover and that iron is no longer, and that process of the water and the iron combining to create that hydrogen is not feasible anymore, and it's not creating that hydrogen. How long does that process take? And we could very well be far too early in the I guess discovery stages here to know that.
As they point out, though, of course, hydrogen has its faults as an energy source. From Science.com, 1 kilogram of hydrogen holds as much energy as a gallon of gasoline, but at ambient pressures, the same kilogram of hydrogen occupies more space than the drum of a typical concrete mixing truck. Pressurized tanks can hold more, but add weight and cost to vehicles. Liquefying hydrogen requires chilling to minus 253 degrees centigrade. Usually, that is in itself a disqualifying expense.
Well, it would be much greater than the concerns of LNG, right? Remember the LNG and, okay, who's going to be qualified to handle this at the pump? What is the process going to be for the consumer, anybody, to get out at the pump and handle this, and what is required to do that? This is far more complicated.
Yeah, and like I said, the liquefying of the hydrogen, which you would need in order to transport it to where it is needed, because we don't know how widespread around the world you would need. And they finished digging a borehole in Nebraska in 2019. That was the first one in the United States. So again, let's be honest, I'm not going to see this in my lifetime to any type of mass production of this.
It won't replace oil and natural gas right now.
Right. But it is.
But I could see that transition happening, and it also happening in a way where, because one of the things that the energy companies do, if they find that there is a path, then they can expedite, quite often they can expedite that process through the technology. One of the things that happened with horizontal drilling is it ramped up production, but because it expanded the sites of essentially where you could drill, where you could go into the ground, including areas of far west Texas that were considered to be at one point far too rocky to go into. And now with horizontal drilling, you can go in and you can produce oil and natural gas.
And they also talk about the fact that, the use may not be commercial first. All the energy that industry uses, there could be for major industries, would be where you might first go with all this natural hydrogen. They talk about there's room to replace in heavy-duty vehicles that are ill-suited for batteries, they say, or gas, or more batteries, trucks, ships, all which can handle larger tanks. Industries such as steel that require high-temperature combustion are likely another market, and they go into, basically ammonia fertilizers today are made by using hydrogen. Right. And so, they say it may be where you see it come in to help, reduce the fact that wind and solar aren't consistent.
Right.
Is that hydrogen may be used in industry first, which uses a tremendous amount of electricity or power, and you use it there, before you actually commercialize it for personal use or transportation, general transportation uses. So again, we're at the baby stages of it. It's really in the last year that the U.S. Geological Survey came out and said there may be a lot of it. There may be a lot of this stuff.
And if it's true that the Earth can continuously produce it in certain areas for such a long time, you mentioned it takes millions of years for the Earth to convert rock to that oil and natural gas. One of the things that confounded the former engineer at Shell, he's now in Israel, by the way, and he wanted to find a way to convert that shale to that oil and natural gas much quicker, and he did. And he did that through a process called in situ conversion. And when you look at this would dwarf all of the advances made with that discovery if you can contain it and if it is fully dispatchable.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, just looking at what the future may bring, and if they ever could tap into the hydrogen and make it commercially available, that would be, and because it's naturally occurring, that would be the best. Because, they're having problems with any way that they try to make, as we've talked about, hydrogen has problems.
Yeah,
right. Whether if it's electrolysis or some of the other ways that they attempt to make it, where again, it's as bad as fossil fuels. And actually, the residue of it is actually carbon. But they're hoping we'll make hydrogen, then bury the carbon dioxide. By the way, environmentalists now are coming out against that. You see that?
Yeah. And by the way, let the big energy companies spend their money on it, right? And looking into it.
Yeah.
Let them do the exploration.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.